for anyone who hasn't seen the trailer yet or gotten to look at some of the reveal, y'all have it's a AAA game. The graphics are amazing, lighting, physics, everything from all the reveals I've seen. And the customization is going to be endless. And I appreciate that as a gamer. I won't pretend that I'm a massive racing fan. I don't know enough about it, or I don't know enough about motorsport fan, I should say. But I can appreciate the depth when I see it there, definitely. Hi, I am Matthew Simone. I am the Web3 gamer, and I am here with Billy and Arran of Grease Monkey Games. How's it going, y'all?
Hey, good.
Pleasure to be able to speak with y'all today. Really glad we were able to connect. I think you have some really interesting stuff you're working on, some really interesting projects. But before that, honestly, would love to hear a bit about y'all, hear a bit about your company. So, I mean, let's just get into it. Where are you from? What's your background? How'd you get into this project? Were you originally a crypto fan? Were you a Web3 fan? Were you an NFT fan?
Go left to right, yeah. Alphabetical order.
So my name's Arran. I'm the CEO and director of Grease Monkey Games. I come from a visual effects background, so my kind of history has always been in visual sides of aspects of things. I used to do commercials and movies and stuff like that. And, you know, Grease Monkey Games started coming on 10 years ago. We were a bootstrap company, just building up from, you know, getting a few jobs and hiring more people. And we just kind of built it up to the point, which in the story that you're going to hear about with the acquisition from Animoca Brands. But, you know, we started initially doing installations for like car companies at motor shows and things like that. So I remember in 2014, we had 4 installations at the LA Auto Show. Very large brands, very large car brands like Honda and Mazda and Nissan. And so, you know, it's pretty exciting stuff. And then we started doing a game on the side, and doing our own IP. And the minute that kind of was released, we became a games company. And we haven't really looked back from there. So my aspect is obviously running the business and connecting all the dots. I'm still very much a art director and do all the vision around here kind of thing, and contribute to that, but all very high level, and making sure the power and the you know, we have access to the building kind of thing. So yeah.
I'm Billy, I'm the COO here at Grease Monkey. Been at the company for just over 8 years. 8 years now.
One of the first. Well, in the group now, you were one of the first. Yeah.
Yeah, which is wild. It seems to have gone by really fast. Kind of in that time, worn all of the different hats. As is Arran, you know, as you do in a small indie company that's growing, stuff needs to be done. There's no one else to point to do it, so you just kind of follow your curiosity and do it and learn and get better as you go. I've personally been making games for since I was a kid. Found out you could add automatic slide transitions and hyperlinks in PowerPoint, and that was my first kind of intro into games, making, you know, choose your own adventure games when I was quite young. And from there, I thought that I wanted to make animation, you know, stop motion animation like Wallace and Gromit and things like that. And then refound, I guess, game dev, and pursued that as a career. I've always been, cars have been kind of a big part of my life as well. My dad being a diesel mechanic in the army, kind of pulling apart and wrenching cars as a kid. And so when I kind of I moved to Melbourne, discovered League of Monkeys, which is what the company was called back in the day. And they're doing car stuff, they're doing games. And I just, you know, managed to find my way through the gates, as they were back then, or the gates. And still here. So managed to stick around and having a ball.
So then is it fair to say before this, were either of you ever to have anything to do with like crypto or Web3 or NFTs, or was this game really like the first foray into that?
No, the crypto thing came around obviously with the acquisition from Animoca Brands. So we were already making TalkDrift 2 prior to that acquisition. And they really introduced us into Web3 and everything blockchain. The tech particularly excites Billy and myself. It's not, it's really what it offers for players in the future, I think is just, it's really exciting stuff. You know, digital ownership in itself, the concept is amazing. And I don't really think the industry has taken full advantage of what it actually offers. And like with the stuff that you see what we're working on, we're trying to connect real life brands to the gaming experience and Web3 through hooks through the whole thing. And for us, that is something different, something unique, and pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're aware of the technology well into like the development of TalkDrift 1. I guess we haven't really mentioned the game. So we got Talk Burnout, which is on mobile, had roughly 40 million downloads. We then went on to make a more worldwide, global appeal motorsport game, which is drifting. We chose drifting because it's something that's still small, growing, but has a really large potential, and something as an indie game studio we can really sink our teeth into in terms of signing up brands, making something that hasn't really been done before. So, and at that time we kind of were aware of blockchain and cryptocurrencies, but it was still very, when was this? It's weird because 2018, 2017, it's not that long ago, but it seems like the space has come such a long way. And I think the use cases, once we kind of changed our thinking to blockchain for games, what does that actually mean at like a fundamental technology level? And then obviously being introduced to Animoca, really kind of connected those things, and we got very excited very fast, I think.
Also, another point about the drifting angle, it's like when you relate it to all other motorsports, it is a very young motorsport. So, so basically, what we're able to sign deals that you could imagine Formula One and how difficult it would be to break into any kind of licensing or getting through to managers and all those kind of things that you have to do. But with drifting, it's growing, and we're able to sign some awesome deals with some amazing companies, which are kind of similar to us, which is still growing ourselves, and looking for opportunities. So a lot of our business happens in America, and one of our major partners, Formula Drift, we were able to sign we're a major sponsor of them, and really kind of connect what we're doing virtually with the real experience as well.
So then, Arran, you were mentioning earlier, you wanted to talk about a good amount of how you guys are bringing kind of the digital and the physical together with your brand overall. Do you want to talk more about that?
Well, like initially with TalkDrift, we signed a lot of aftermarket parts and drivers. And so like, these guys, they haven't been in games before, guys and girls, and it's like, it's awesome they love to get their brand out. That some of them have like amazing brands, so we're happy to push it. So for us, it's this endless stream of content, which is cool. Like it's just great to have these brands in the game. But we're also promoting those brands, and recently, it's in development right now, is we're selling parts. These parts that we've signed in the game, we're selling them in real life. So what Web3 does, it enables us to connect the dots where if you own this NFT, like of an alloy wheel, you can get a discount of that exact alloy on our store. So it's like, if you're a fan of a brand, which, in motorsport, passionate people love their brands. They love repping certain wheel brands or turbos or whatever. They put the stickers on the side of their car and stuff. So, and we're just giving them an extra way to connect to that brand. So And I think Web3 definitely does that for us. It enables us to do something different and reward people for their, for being a fan. Yeah.
And in addition to that, the other way around, if you have people coming in who just want to buy car parts, we can give them access to the digital versions of those car parts for the game. So they kind of have a different way of discovering the utility and they get something, right? They've bought the alloys for their car. We can give them digital alloys and they're like, you can use that in Torque Burnout, Torque Drift 1 and Torque Drift 2. And they have this whole new kind of experience outside of the traditional shopping experience, getting what they came for, maybe getting a good deal and going through the sales process, to having this motorsport experience with this new thing, a digital asset, which maybe they're not aware of. So that really excites us as well, going, both ways, from the game to the physical, from the physical back to the game, and letting our players, build cars alongside their digital cars, which I think is, it's a really exciting proposition. And there's no reason why we can't do it. So we're like, let's just do it and see what happens.
Definitely. And I will say too, for anyone who hasn't seen the trailer yet, y'all have, it's a AAA game. The graphics are amazing, lighting, physics, everything from all the reveals I've seen. And the customization is going to be endless. And I appreciate that as a gamer. I won't pretend that I'm a massive racing fan. I don't know enough about it, or I don't know enough about motorsport fan, I should say. But I can appreciate the depth when I see it there, definitely. And I can tell y'all both have a huge passion for it and have really gone the extra mile to make sure that people who also have a passion for that clearly see it identified in your game.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely. I think, we were a mobile developer, so getting games to work on mobile has restrictions and barriers that you have to cross. Android, I don't know if anyone knows this, but there's over 20,000 devices of Android that potentially might not like your game. So there's a whole lot of issues in the Android world. You have to optimize it and stuff. And we said with Torque Drift 2 and our future games, we're really going very high quality, and we are doing AAA. One thing you mentioned was customization, and we've really kind of doubled down on that. We do full interior customization, and this hasn't been seen, I don't believe, in any game yet to date. And we also include the real brands, so all the brands that you see, and you can customize your car in the game. You can go buy that part. You know what I mean? And we connect the experience to real life. Yeah.
No, which is a really cool experience for any motorsport fan. I mean, being able to, obviously, I'm not even massively into motorsports, but I know it's a very expensive. I don't want to call it, for some people, it could be a very expensive hobby, but even a career, it's a very expensive career. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's your team, your vehicles, customization, all that. So for a lot of people who, it's a pipe dream, or maybe it's something where they're like, I would have loved to have done that, but I'm past that. This is a great way to really live that life fully and immersively, I think. And I really liked what you all said earlier about how if people own a specific NFT, that they can get the physical product in your shop for a discount, or let's say a specific one that may only be available to people who have that NFT, if that's something y'all are going to do in the future. And I like that you connect the physical and the digital, like you said, because I feel like most people, the NFTs are merely a digital key or marker for them to either get into the game or do something unique in the game. But y'all are really bridging this gap where you're bringing it back out to your actual brand, your actual company, saying it's great, if you just want to play the game and be an NFT holder, but we're offering so much more than that, utility wise and as a brand and as a company wise, for people who are beyond just the game.
But Billy, you should really talk about how we kind of try and cater to different gaming experiences. So
yeah, I mean, just before that, I think you may have seen on the web store, but you might not have. You've seen the trailer, so the bobblehead at the start on the dash, on the car's dash. So the very first thing that we actually did, venturing into the physical space, is actually went through a whole process. We modeled that in 3D. We got that manufactured. We had, many months of R&D. We produced that, packaged it. It's available in real life. and our premium keychain holders, which is the first kind of behind the scenes access NFT that we did, they get that for free. They just pay shipping on the website. You connect your wallet, and you get that sent to your house, and you can put that. It actually comes with a little 3M strip, so you can stick it on your dash, just like in the trailer. So like those kinds of things really excite us and bring the fun back into, well, not back into, but enhances the fun. And yeah, the digital and physical, we're always looking at ways to bring that experience back into the physical world.
Yeah, it's also really important to know that that is, as we've been in this industry for 10 years, and we realize quite early on that players don't always enjoy the games the way you've designed it. So that, as a game designer, you think that I'm making a drifting game. Let's make it all about drifting. The physical, how does it steer and all that kind of stuff. And then what we found out is there's a whole bunch of players out there that experience the game differently, and they might spend all the time on customization, or they might spend all their time tuning and or collecting. So there's different. So when we get into Web3, particularly with Talk Drift 2, is we're making different roles so people can enjoy the game differently. And that also extends beyond the game too. So we're talking about, trying to connect, if you're a fan of that brand and you can go buy that part in real life. So there's different angles that we're trying to take on this, and that's not traditional kind of game design. And, you mentioned earlier, Matt, about, we're making a AAA game, and is it like how is it going to be a playable experience? And I responded with that we are releasing experiences as we go along. So traditionally in mobile gaming, you have a release date. You try and hit that date, you get it out, and then you release 100% of the experience, and you can add to it as you go along, and which is what we've done. But with this release, is we're going to release experiences as we go along. So one of the first experiences is the garage and the customization aspect. We also have a photo booth. So once you customize your car, you can take photos of your car on different angles and share it on socials. And then beyond that, we're going to release like a dyno, and then fully painting your car. Then there's going to be driving experiences, then cruise, and all different kind of game design elements as we move forward. So we're going to be releasing that in stages, and one is coming very shortly, which is our first experience. Yeah.
And the idea behind that is that we don't want to sit in isolation, create this game that we think everyone wants based on our best guess or our experience. We can build it alongside the people who are going to be playing it, because they, often, very often, have the best ideas, and we're making it for them at the end of the day. It's not just a personal project that we're making for ourselves. So, and I just think it's a funner way to make games. It's kind of, we do live ops games, which means that we're doing updates, every month or every other month, and those updates are purely or majority of the time driven by the community feedback and what they want. So it's like, well, let's do that from the start, and go from there. So we have a roadmap, we have features we want to include, but we try to, for multiple reasons, right? Because we want to release things as soon as possible, but we also don't want to overguess what everyone wants, so that we can release something like, hey, what does everyone think the next few features to be added in here in terms of priority should be? People can vote and comment, give feedback, and then we do that. So there's going to be driving, there's going to be multiplayer, competitive driving, but there's a lot in between that that can be influenced by what the community wants. So
I totally agree with that. And that's a big thing that's really nice in Web3 gaming, is a lot of companies and developers have their roadmap, but then always kind of create space in between each milestone to go, if the community wants something more than this, we're happy to delay this to give the community what they want. And I think you get a really bolstered community when people want to stick around, because they get to decide the future of the game. They get to have some sort of influence. I mean, there's tons of people out there who, you know, maybe they've always wanted to be game developers or do something in VFX or have some sort of influence on a game that, you know, it's just not going to be for them, or they'll have no way. And being a part of a community really gives them this access and aspect to be able to do that. And it's really cool to be able to see a game, if you really like it, develop over time and be like, I had a hand in that. And it just makes you a more loyal follower. And so I'm wondering, is that a big part of why you all wanted to develop a Web3 like NFT game instead of, because you could have just made this a traditional game, obviously. You didn't have to go down this route. And so I'm wondering if that was a big part, or if there was other things as well that made you want to make it particularly like a Web3 game.
The way that we saw, and Arran touched on it, the players were playing our previous games, they were creating such large amounts of value that it felt, it didn't feel right to just create the game, have all that value coming back to us, right? And Web3 and blockchain gives us an avenue to give that back to the people generating the most value. So when you look at Facebook as a company, something ridiculous like $100 billion last year. It's like when you think about it and you step back, it's like, who's creating the value here? It's the people making the content on Instagram that gets the eyeballs, that you know, has the revenue from advertising coming into Facebook. It's like, how much of that money is going back to the people making that content? And I think we can all guess it's
Zero.
less than. So
Yeah.
when you think of it like
Less
that,
than
it
pennies on the
seems-
dollar.
Well, yeah, exactly. And when you think of it like that, and there's many examples of that in, you know, Web 2, but I just don't think that that's what games are going to be in the future. You know, there's the creator modes in Fortnite, people creating experiences and value for other players that continues to have people come back for those things. And I think it's only fair that people get a slice of that pie. So
I'll also add that we're exploring modding. So, you know, if people are going to bring value to the game, then they potentially could make their own NFT to sell within our marketplace to unlock something for players. So, yeah, I think those kind of angles of gaming development are really important these days. I think, like, I've seen some incredible stats around the modding community games where they might not hit the market very, you know, huge, but they build up over time. And some games, you know, 8 years later are still trajecting up because they've built the community, and the community has built the entire experience. You know what I mean? So if we can do that, as opposed to making a AAA game that might peak and then drop because no one's feeding that, you know, no one's building a community around that. So there are a couple of angles that we're taking as well. Yeah.
The other thing we haven't touched on yet, or relating to blockchain, is our cars. So we're working with Nissan to create their first kind of NFTs and enter into the space. But you can do some really cool stuff with NFTs because they maintain history, right? You can put it on chain from gameplay data and trading history between players. And, you know, we might have the same variant or model of car, myself and Arran, but maybe Arran is a far better driver than me. I don't think that's the case,
true.
But
Yeah.
and might win a bunch of tournaments, and people want to buy Arran's car, not mine. So it's stuff you can add value through the player's gameplay that's continually added, and it's a different value proposition than just maybe this car has different wheels. Maybe that's on chain, but it has gameplay data attached to it, and that's valuable as well based on the
Definitely.
legacy.
Like lore is obviously important around community and but motorsports has that. Do you know what I mean? And a car and its history becomes, you know, mythical, and it just becomes this incredible story around it, and that has value. You know what I mean? So we're just trying to tap into what makes this people passionate about this industry, which is really interesting. Like, you don't, as what you mentioned, Matt, you don't have to be a motorsports person to necessarily get something out of this. You know what I mean? So I know a lot of people, they might like car games, but not necessarily into cars. But they might like, we have this incredible artist in Talk Drift One. His tag name is Markina. He just paints liveries, which is the design on the cars. And using our tools, he makes these amazing designs.
Doesn't make sense.
I can't stop talking about this. Like in every single podcast, I talk about the same guy, and it's like he's spending hours designing these cars for no value. You know what I mean? He's just doing it because he loves it. He's just passionate.
Yeah.
And it's like, imagine. So he's created a law. Like people actually pay him in real life to design their car's livery. Imagine being able to sell NFTs of people that get the rights to use that livery in real life. You know what I mean? So it's like his passion all of a sudden becomes accessible. You know?
No, that's amazing. So I'll dig into three things here. One, I totally agree with you about modding. Because I think we've seen it's amazing to me, just if we look at traditional gaming, how modding has carried games that are, like you said, 8-10 years old at this point, and people are still playing it, still loving it because of modding. Or people have like, hey, I basically rebuilt the game from the ground up with this mod, and you can play. It's the same assets, but it's a totally different experience, totally different game. And then communities release that on their own. They get a massive amount of support, and people love that. I love that. I'm a massive fan of that. I'm also a massive fan of, I'm not a motorsports person, but I like racing games and I really love customization. I always have a blast with customization because that's how I've learned so much about motorsports, cars, things of that nature. I have a cousin who's very much into motorsports and I can never talk shop with him to save my life, but I always have a really fun time listening to him explain stuff to me and talk shop with me. And then it's funny you brought up models, like specific, like a Corvette Stingray, like it's like iconic in a way, like a specific brand or model that has like its own lore to it. And I guess I'm wondering, outside of that, do you all plan to have any sort of lore with your game, or is it really you're sticking to the motorsport specific lore, which would make sense?
I think the players will definitely create their own lore around this. I think that's almost a given. Here's another cool thing that we're doing. We talk about quantities of something and like, how does that really work? You know, we're going to release 10,000 of this one car, or, you know, and we're going to tap into the ratios of what's actually released in real life. So, for example, a model of a car comes in different variants and different models of that make. And we're going to, so if you're Midnight Purple, there's only 100 of them in real life. We're going to have the ratio of that purple release in the game, the same kind of thing. So the rarity of something is aligned, so we can get the actual stats of how many of one car in what color has been sold. Yeah.
That'll be cool. Yeah, I mean, scarcity is a big thing in all the NFTs and Web3, but when you have a legitimate scarcity like that, I'm much more behind it than the arbitrary 10,000 number going out. 10,000. 10,000 is a lot less than 100,000 or a million, but you go. I like that. That's a lot more interesting, true to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And on the so we are setting baseline kind of story. You know, you're a driver. You'll come back to your garage in fictional Japanese city. And you can kind of progress, just like in real life, in two different areas, which is like the streets. So the game's based in Japan. We haven't touched on that yet, but that's where drifting was born. So it has such a large history of the sport and the passion behind drifting develop, and then eventually, it's gone worldwide. But we want to tap into both of those different areas, I guess, or lifestyles of drifting, which is still very much alive today. So the back streets of Japan and the toges and the hills, progressing there and street reputation, building your car for the streets, and then building your car for the worldwide circuit like Formula Drift, which is, if you ask any driver, they're completely different ball games in terms of how you approach driving in those environments, and how you set up your car, how it looks, sponsors that you get to promote their parts, things like that. So as a driver, you're progressing in these two different environments and doing completing different kinds of challenges and competing in different ways against other players. There's more to it, but we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there for now.
No, that's really cool. I really like that you pay homage to that history. And as a big fan of Japan, I don't know if either of you are familiar with, or maybe you've heard of it since you're both into motorsport. If you've ever heard of Initial D, the manga or anime. Yeah. So even not as a motorsport, I don't consider myself like a motorsport person. I love that for the history it gave of all that going on in Japan at the time. And I still love that there are people who drive around in their customized cars and go through the hills and drift. And it's a really cool subculture that still exists to this day that I really appreciate. I did not know about it until I read Initial D that is where drifting originated. I never could have guessed that. So I thought that was really cool. Honestly, what chain are your NFTs on? And are you planning to stick with one chain? Or are you all thinking of going wherever the chains may lead you, you know?
I think currently, so we're going with Polygon. And that is for a few reasons. They're heavily gaming focused. I just read this morning the previous head of gaming, the CEO, Ryan, has stepped down actually. And there's somebody else coming up as CEO of Polygon. But there's still a big focus on gaming, and you can kind of see that through their efforts and their partnerships. Also, the Rev ecosystem is part of Animoca Brands, so we're part of the Rev ecosystem of motorsport blockchain games within Animoca, backed by and built with the Rev token, and one of the main areas that is on Polygon. Because it's fast, it's cheap. Who knows what the future will hold, I guess, is the probably the key thing you want to say in this space, because things change a lot. We're just trying to make, the decisions that make the most sense now and leave us with the most flexibility in the future, because any other route, I think, can bite you in the butt.
No, of course. Well, and with that, I totally understand that, and I think Polygon's a great choice, by the way. You're right, they're very gaming focused. I think a lot of Web3 is going with Polygon for a very good reason. And I'm wondering if you can, twofold, if you want to talk about Rev token at all, for anybody unaware, because it sounds like it's related to Animoca, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be curious definitely to hear more about that. So is that specifically for their gaming ecosystem, or is that specifically just their own ecosystem token that they use for a variety of things?
They use it. It's motorsport related. So anything.
Gotcha.
So there's other titles that have already been created in Web3, and Rev is the token. So and that token is going to be expanded on in the future. You're going to hear some announcements as we move forward, but It's really cool that Web3 can align very strongly. The message of utility works really well with motorsport. Because a car has a certain amount of horsepower and it has a certain weight. So if you want to put the utility of that car into another game, you can use that metadata and it works. It makes sense. You know what I mean? And now that we've signed a lot of aftermarket parts, exactly the same thing. So the metadata will contain that. And Rev is going to be used for the vehicles within our game. And obviously the higher level thinking is that the utility of that vehicle will work in other future titles that are made under the Rev ecosystem. So we sign these deals, and is amazing brands. And it's not easy doing licensing deals. It's a massive pain in the ass, if I'm going to be honest. And so once you get that, and you have utility of an NFT that could have life beyond these projects that we're working on, then it makes sense to make something that is utility focused and has value in the future. I always think about this, that the NFTs that we're creating now can have a really long life and will exist in projects that we have no idea about, and I think that is super cool. well, they could exist. Obviously, it's all licensing, branded, and it has to be approved. But I think the utility options are there. It's not like a sword or a BFG that it doesn't relate into a different.
I like the homage to BFG there. We won't say what that stands for, but I got you. Yeah, big Doom fan. I guess too. So, was there any traditional games that y'all took inspiration from, or were you mainly just taking inspiration from the real life motorsport itself?
Inspiration is obviously we're human beings, and you do take inspiration from many different angles. We try to do stuff different, to be honest, and I don't know whether it's to the detriment of what we're doing, but I want to make something unique. Like we are the creators of something completely new. It's like, why should we copy anything that's out there? It's like we can make whatever the hell we want, and I'm always quite shocked when I see existing motorsport. I'm not going to name them because I'll just be destroyed. But existing motorsport titles that just copy each other, and I don't understand that. I genuinely don't understand it. Why, if they're creating something from scratch and they have these amazing brands and this content, why they have to kind of make the same? So we're definitely trying to do something different.
Yeah, I guess in terms of what I played growing up, I played just a lot of MMOs, a lot of RuneScape, a lot of World of Warcraft. Gosh,
how many hours did you have in World of Warcraft?
I don't want to say.
No, say it out loud. I think it was.
No, you gotta say it. Come on.
Yeah. Well, look, I won't say as bad. There's many people out there who have a lot more hours. But I think when I stepped away was when you go /played and it pops up and it was like 260 days and you're like, okay, I'm only 18. That's almost a full year of my life. So let's gotta step back.
I actually think it was worse than that.
But there's such. I think what I take away from those games is I don't think about the mechanics. I don't think about the combat. I don't think about the leveling progression so much. I think about the stories and the unique kind of experiences I had, doing raids at Molten Core, with my guild, the people I've met and the friendships and while I spent a lot of time in there, that's the kind of stuff that I remember, and trying to bring that over into the games that we make, and create those lasting stories and experiences. I guess that's the key word. Experiences in the games is what I probably took away from all of that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a hard thing to capture, because what you and I may think of when we're developing a game is, the experiences to a degree. We're always going to be a little biased, and it's going to be catered towards us because we're building the game. We're like, well, I think this would be really cool. I'd love to see this. And then you always have to be like, well, it's obviously not all about me. It's great if I'm the only one playing my game, but I'm trying to, make money here. I'm trying to develop a game. I'm trying to get a community around this. So I have to think, as Arran said earlier, there's a lot of other ways different people will play your game that you will never even think of until you see them play it. And you're like, I'm really glad somebody figured that out or did this differently, because now it gives us so many more ideas I wouldn't have had. Again, teamwork just makes you think so differently when other people bounce their ideas off one another. And I as someone who was a RuneScape fan, I played that with my friends. I tried getting into WoW, but I didn't have enough friends, so I fell out of it. But RuneScape was one that always stuck, and I agree with you. The experiences I have with that is not everything you said. It was getting to go explore the cool quest with my friends, or a friend coming to school the next day and being like, dude, did you do this quest? I got this cool thing. And I'm like, will you help me do it? And they're like, of course I'll help you do it. And then it's that experience of a shared community aspect of having a fun time exploring, getting those experience. And but obviously everyone doesn't have the same experience with a game. So it gets really difficult where you just, that's, again, as a developer, as a game creator, that is your prime function. Is I just want people to have fun playing my game, if nothing else.
Yeah. I guess when you look at it, it's creating the environment where those things can happen. is probably
Fostering it,
our role. It's just like giving the most opportunity for those kinds of experiences to flourish. Maybe they won't happen in the same way we think they might, but
well, they definitely won't happen in the way that we think they will. I don't know. It's just, if we can kind of create something that lets people explore, lets people try different things, then I think that's pretty much our job. I'll also say that players will create stuff that is like a 1,000 times better than you could have imagined. You know what I mean? Like the modding to me particularly is exciting because it's like you have 10,000 developers working on your game. You know what I mean? And they'll do like weird things or wacky things, or they might do a different layout or a different track concept and stuff, and something that you would have never explored. And I try to explain it to my staff here that that it's not always about what we create. It's like we have to inspire them to, we can set the benchmark. It's like we can make a track and make it look pretty, but then we can give them the ability to make their own tracks and just see what comes back. It's just crazy, I'm completely blown away by what some of the things that people are capable of creating.
Oh, definitely. And so it sounds like to me, a big thing that you want your project to differ with, like a big experience and things you're trying to bring to your community, is almost this sense of creativity, of expression, because, you have the customization, you want people to do modding, you want people to, maybe break the game, maybe not break the game, but basically expand upon different assets and different ways of playing the game and making it more involved in a way you could have ever hoped and dreamed. Am I correct in that thinking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we use that quote in our marketing? That's cool.
Please go ahead. Whatever you want, go ahead. That is, in my opinion, one of the reasons I love Web3 so much for gaming specifically, because with traditional gaming, I think there's so many what ifs after regrets of going, if only we could push out different updates, or if only we could change this or change that. And so a lot of games, they just go, we develop our game, we put it out, you love it, you hate it, that's all it's said and done. Some of them, obviously, they're like, no, we've listened, we love that people love modding, we make that a thing, even though the base game is, it doesn't change, but modding, you can add things to the game. And then you have people who kind of get a weird, or I guess rather now Battle Royale is a big thing where they're just like, it's the same base core play, but we're always trying to change, add different dynamics, different mechanics every season, And so with Web3, it's like you can have all three of those and then so much more. People are always wanting to add in their own ideas, add in their own different experiences, and really just build the game into something so different than, as we said, anything you could have ever hoped and dreamed. And so with that, I think that right now it's an interesting parallel. Web3 gaming is coming right up, if not already parallel to traditional gaming and how it plays. And I'm curious if you all think there's a point where they're going to keep running parallel for the time being, or if you think Web3 gaming is going to surpass that. But since we don't have a massive adoption rate yet, it won't appear that way.
I think the adoption thing will, if it's to succeed, it will be effortless. And what I mean by that is the players won't necessarily know that they're using the tech from blockchain. And I think that's kind of like the end goal. So there's a lot of friction from Web 2 players. But I think in the end that what they get back out of the gaming experience is so much better that, we're just going to design systems, the onboarding that will be a far more pleasant than what that is now, that they'll just love it. You know what I mean? I think, we talk about Web3 and we use these catchphrases and stuff. Hopefully it just becomes gaming. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you log into this game and it happens, you can actually sell your digital asset. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, that to me is cool, and I don't like getting into the arguments, you know what I mean? I just think it's kind of just redundant. It's just kind of stupid. When mobile gaming went free to play, there was a lot of friction and there's a lot of issues around players not being happy about it. They said, it's I'm never going to play that. But guess what? Everyone plays free to play games. If you don't have it free to play, people complain now. So it's the community's flipped, their expectations have flipped, and I think that will happen with Web3. I think as systems get built up, where it becomes easy, you just log into it. Fractal does an amazing gaming experience that you can get quite into gaming without too much effort. You know what I mean? And I think those kind of angles and how to think about how we develop for that. It'll just make it gaming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it probably is going to coincide with more of a cultural shift around people's ownership over their data online as well. Like once you flip the story, but hang on, why don't I own my items in games? Or XYZ, why don't I own my data with Facebook? And then that will slowly creep into games. Like, why don't I own my sword or my car or my backpack in these games? And the natural solution to that is blockchain. I think separate to the whole blockchain, that conversation around ownership of data is coming anyway. So it's kind of very good timing, or it'll look like good timing once it all kind of converges, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I do agree about, I liked how earlier in our conversation, we're talking about how, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, how if you owned a specific NFT, it looks like for an alloy, you could get that you could use that across all of your games that your company's developed, right? It's not specific to one. And so that's what I see going really forward is, let's just talk about specifically, I don't play NBA or NFL, any of the sports games, but I know that's a big pain point for a lot of people is every year it comes out, jerseys, power-ups, things of that nature. People spend a lot of money on it and then they get ticked off that it can't carry over into the next year's game. And so something where owning your own assets, people would be, I think, much more thrilled at the idea of going, yeah, I can bring this over every year going forward because why would that? It's still, there's still going to be jerseys in the game. It's still a sports game. As long as it makes sense in the realm of items and aspects, I can see it moving forward. And I think that's a big thing going forward that people are going to love and want, especially for certain franchises or certain games where they're like, I'm on 4 or the 5th iteration of this game. I've been playing since the first one. I love the idea of being able to use items I have from the first one in the 5th one to show people how long I've been a fan of this game, or maybe they have a unique ability or aspect that only people who've been playing since the first one can get. I think that's a big thing for people going forward who are going to love to see that.
It's like the value of being an OG, or I think it's so cool and people love that. Some of the skins in Fortnite, the very early ones, and that you just can't get them again. And that's just crazy cool. Yeah.
So I'm glad to see, because y'all are the first people I've talked to have actually done that, where you're able to utilize it in multiple games. To be fair, most other Web3 gaming companies I've talked to, especially AAA, have just recently gotten into their AAA title. And that's just where, that's where all their energy is going, because that's where their community lies. And they want to make sure that's bolstered and well built. Sometimes they don't feel the need to build another game, and that's totally all right. Sometimes they just, as we've discussed, they have their milestones and they keep developing on that game, where maybe in traditional gaming, we would have had a 2nd or 3rd iteration of this series, but to them, it's just been an ongoing series as a whole because the community is there and that's what they want. And so with that, I'm wondering, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, it's interesting to think about that. I think from a player's aspect, being able to carry items across is cool. Everyone wants that. I want that. But as a developer, it does, how you monetize the game. Forza releases a new version every couple of years. If you carry across items, all of a sudden they don't tap into their fan base, who they know is going to spend a certain amount rebuying the same cars. So it's a different way of thinking, and developers are going to kind of work out how they're going to monetize that moving forward. Yeah,
I think that touches on some interesting nuance which we've kind of adopted internally, is like transferability of assets, but not progression. So progression is important for that specific game that you brought over your assets into. And you might think of that as like, you know, why not bring the progression as well? But it's funny because like the players, if you give a player, it's like you unlock everything in the game, right? All of a sudden the game's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
There's no things to drive you forward to, you know, for things to be hard, to get better and then win. Do you know what I mean? You just have everything. And so the progression is actually what you want to keep and build around the transferable pieces of content that you have between, you know, multiple games. So that's just like a little bit of nuance around interoperability that we've been thinking about internally.
I will say, definitely, you unlock everything, game's broken. People just stop playing. I remember originally, I think we trialed like a one payment mobile fee and in-app purchase, which unlocks everything. And then you just see like, some people think it's really cool and they do it, but that's it. They stop playing after 2 weeks because there's nothing to be proud of. You know what I mean? There's nothing to inspire towards. Yeah.
Sure. And so it will definitely come down to like a delicate balance of maybe there's just classic cars or classic items based on your game that if there was 100 items in the game, you're like, these 10 are always going to transfer over no matter what, because they're considered like classic OG items or skins or whatever for the game, but you're still going to always have things you're going to need to unlock, purchase, buy. So I get what you're saying. There's definitely a healthy balance to be had for sure. If you could talk to younger folks right now who wanted to, you know, maybe they want to get exactly to where you want to go. Maybe they just want to get in the same realm. What advice would you give them? Just, it doesn't have to be super complicated. Just maybe simple. Just be like, you know, for me, I'm always just like, find something that you enjoy that is a niche and stick with it. And you will get noticed by people and other people will want to work with you as long as you are kind and care and really try to be passionate about the projects you work on. And so that's something I always try to tell younger people. I'm like, just get started, just keep going. It's going to take time. Don't put a marker on it unless that's something that works for you. But I'm curious if either of you have anything of that nature, just advice to give to younger people who maybe want to just, doesn't have to be related to Web3, but just want to get started, you know, maybe in game development or motorsports.
My number one is just find the fun. And it's a common statement. But I think a lot of developers miss that. And it's something that we're constantly, like, it's really interesting because we're trying to find the fun within every aspect of the game. So maybe like, where is the fun in customizing your car? You know, where is the fun in creating a crew and the experience that you have with your friends? You know what I mean? So I think it's missed a lot in game development these days. And I think, like, you know, we're trying to make high quality games, which takes a lot of people in the building above us to sort. It doesn't have to be like that. Do you know what I mean? It can be, you can go in with a couple. I've seen amazing games made by a couple of people, and guess what? They found the fun. The visuals is nowhere near as important as the gameplay. Also audio. I think I treat audio equal to visuals, which is funny because I'm a visual person. But I think audio is critical, and I think that's missed a lot in game development. The investment in the audio side of things.
Yeah, and I think I would say just be curious, like continually be curious about the technology that's being used in this space. Try not to, like, obviously you need to be aware and knowledgeable of what's going on, but try not to be following what everyone else is doing. If you're making a blockchain game or using blockchain, understand how blockchains work. You know, what actually is the technology underneath? What kinds of things can you do with it? And then how can that plug into other things that you know? Like if you're an entrepreneur, using new technologies and then plugging that into things you already know, your existing knowledge base, is, you know, where really magical bits of software comes out. And yeah, just being curious and really understanding the tech behind all of this stuff, because I think it can do a lot more than it's currently doing, and you don't want to just do what everyone else. You don't want to be following other people based on what they've figured out. So having that, first principles approach to learning what you're building, I think is what I'd say.
No, I think that's really great advice from both of you, and I would wholeheartedly agree with both of those. Well, then the last question I have for you is, we kind of touched on it earlier, but I always try to come back to it at the end because it's not the most important question; it's a fun question. More so, like what were some of your favorite games growing up, or if you still game currently? Are there any games that you're just like, I keep finding myself coming back to this?
Well, I do play. I research games. Like I'll play various different games to see what's out there. I'm also a retro gamer, so I like. I'm a massive Street Fighter fan. I like the fighting games. I've got pinball machines just outside this wall. I've got arcade machines. I got a Neo Geo, old school, big giant cartridge kind of thing.
Me too.
Yeah,
I love the Neo Geo.
Obviously, I'm kind of highlighting my age, but it's I'm a product of the 80s, where arcades were a thing. Over here we call them penny parlors, or
do we?
Yeah, well, pennies.
Yeah, outside of I spent a lot of time in RuneScape, World of Warcraft. There's this PS2 game called Mashed. Not sure if you played that, Matt.
It sounds so familiar. I got a PS2 way after everyone. My family was Nintendo people growing up, so of course. But I got it, and of course that's just because my dad was an Atari guy, and then I think he was just he just went Nintendo, and that was weird. He had two young sons, and so that was just me, my brother, and my dad. That was always our thing, was N64, then GameCube, and then after that, everyone kind of grew up. But no, I did love my PS2. I just got it way after the fact. I was always jealous of everyone else's house. Always had really cool PS2 games, and I was like, dang, I want a PS2. But yeah, no, now I'm gonna check it after this. But continue.
Yeah, is this third person, car battle? It's like a race, but it's not really. You blow each other up and bump people off the track and stuff. It's super fun. SSX, I remember having this trial.
Crazy. Yeah,
there was this trial disc with SSX on it, and it had a time limit, right? So me and my brother, we didn't have the full game. We would just see how far we could get before the time runs out down this level. And in terms of game feel, that was one of the coolest games.
They definitely found the fun in that.
Yeah,
and you could just over it, exploring and breaking out of the the track, whatever. I think, they definitely found the fun in that one.
These days, I love games like Satisfactory. Absolutely love that game. I could just ruin my life in that game, building up a fictional factory, making stuff. You know what I mean? I love interconnecting things and resource management and all that kind of stuff that sounds boring when you come play this game with me. We're gonna build these mines, and then we're gonna transport it to this factory that's gonna make gold bars out of it. I don't want to play that.
I mean, that's literally my brother though. One of his favorite games is City Skylines, and he's just I'm just a city planner. I just run a city, just like Roller Coaster Tycoon. You're running a theme park, but he's I don't know why. I just love it because I can gamify it. Well, it is gamified, obviously, but he's it feels like real life gamified. And you just put it down to simple process, and you're I could run a city after this. You're I don't know if it'd be the same way, but good to think about.
I really admire the stuff that Coffee Stain, who make Satisfactory, how they're doing kind of their media marketing on their YouTube, the development, the tutorials, and that's kind of
that's inspirational to us. For sure.
Yeah, we're trying to do we do a lot of media on YouTube. We have people in the US going to real drift events, doing trackside chats with gamers and drivers. We've just started off a behind the scenes kind of devlog series, kind of showing how we make stuff behind the scenes. So Yeah, but that's been a big inspiration for us, just like how they make the games and, you know, the new skate game and stuff like that.
Side note, if you're a developer, you don't really have much time to play games.
Yes.
That is what I've always heard.
I can experience it for a little bit, but I've got an 18-year-old son who can finish games, but I don't have time.
I can speak to just from everything going on, and I don't have kids. The backlog continues to grow, but the time to play the backlog continues to shrink as time goes on, unfortunately.
That's exactly it.
But I do like you all said, I feel like I've discovered so many smaller indie game studios because I find a particular game that resonates with me and I go, who is the studio, who are these people? And then, I love seeing behind the scenes on YouTube. I love them showing the team. They're like, oh, this is how we came up with this concept or this. And I think people really appreciate that because it makes them like it. They feel more connected to the game in that sense of you're not just seeing people's name in a credit list or, sometimes with certain companies, like you'll never hear about the director if no one else, because they're the person always doing the interviews. You really get an insider look at the people working on the team, the things they like, the ways they have fun, the things they laugh about, they cry about, their inspiration. And I think it really humanizes the whole process a lot more, because I think a lot of people just forget that there are people behind this experience you're playing who created it from the ground up completely. It's not something that a computer just made for you. Obviously there was computers involved, there was technology involved, but by and large, it's always been people make it first and for other people to experience.
We had this problem where people were complaining as if we're like an EA, with hundreds of staff. It's like, I just feel like we're responding like, there's like six of us sitting in a room, work like making this game. There's the connection with the community was not there, and we had this. So now, obviously, we've grown. We've got a lot more stuff, but it's a funny problem to have where they think that you're bigger than you are. And it's like, we're actually responding, so just be happy with that,
Yeah, obviously, by us responding, we are definitely not as big as you think we are. So that is funny to think about. Yeah, I've always been amazed when perfect example of like games that take off where I don't know if either of you, even if you never played it, maybe you heard of Undertale and Toby Fox and just the fact that he's like, it was just me and one other person developing this game for 3 years. And he's like, and the game's only like 5 or 6 hours long, but he's just like, it's just us because I didn't have anybody else to work with. I didn't have anybody else I knew to work with. It's just how it had been me developing my games. And so when you find that out, it makes it insanely impressive that you're just like, I can't imagine just knowing the little I do about game development and how much work goes into it, just being a 1 or 2 man team. Or for example, the dude, I'm blanking on his name right now, for Five Nights at Freddy's. How that guy failed time and time again before Five Nights at Freddy's finally took off as a horror game because he was trying to make it like a happy-go-lucky children's game. People were like, it's too scary for kids. It doesn't make sense. And he actually gave up development for a while. And then somebody spun it on him where they were like, why don't you try making it a horror game? And he's like, okay. And then lo and behold, that story went off very well for him. So I'm always really impressed by development going on, because it's definitely not easy to pour your heart and soul into something and then it doesn't take off, or it doesn't take off the way you intend. And I can see how, as someone who identifies as an artist, that could be very disheartening. So I always appreciate people who keep trying and keep going, because I think the world always will need game developers. And artists.
Went to you have PAX in America. We had PAX in Melbourne, and the creators of Cult of the Lamb, they had a booth. So they had crazy success. So there's things like 4 of them that made it, and just killed it, like just incredible. But they were still running the booth, and they're just like, they're so tired, you know what I mean? And they've sold out of all their merch and stuff. And he's like, I don't know why I'm here, you know what I mean? And it was really interesting to see such a huge success that was made by a handful of people. And like they're still trying to connect with their community, and just like how exhausting it was. It was really interesting to actually meet them. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I played that game, made me laugh, being like a roguelike Animal Crossing meets existential horror. But it was a lot of fun. And I found the same thing too. When I found out it was only like 4 or 5 people who made it, I was very much impressed. But yeah, I don't want to take any more of y'all's time. If there's any other lingering thoughts you want. I'm happy to let you speak them.
No, it was awesome. Thanks for the chat. We're still obviously, we're going through development, and we're going to be doing it for another couple of years. But it'll be great to speak to you in the future and see a lot of the stuff that we've raised come to fruition. Touch on that. Yeah. You might, maybe you'll see it, and I'll have more grey hair. I don't know.
No, I would definitely love to have you all both on, especially as more developments occur, as you finally get closer to your release, and definitely for release, as a way to just give that big push, because I'm definitely going to keep my eyes on it, because I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, it was great. I really appreciate having you both here. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and talk about not only Grease Monkey Games, and not only talk about what y'all are developing, but just your personal backgrounds and everything, really.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's been a blast. Everyone, listeners, just go check out talkmotorsport.io, and that's where we are.
Of course. Thanks, y'all. Take care.